it's a large group, and you're talking about men who already have high risk of cardiovascular problems.
Pre-existing or a high risk.
So they're kind of stacking the deck in order to make it as negative of a situation as possible.
Yes.
And they found functionally no difference between placebo and the control in the trial groups. This is Generation Health. We bring you the latest news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices, helping you live a longer, healthier life. Sitting across from me, Joey DiMatteo, PharmD, board-certified clinical nutritionist. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm delightful. We'll see.
Yes.
There's a thunderstorm outside. Hopefully, it stops thundering.
Hopefully, I don't get startled.
And thank you. If you hear a boom, that's what it is, folks. And to my right, Dante DiMatteo, PharmD. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you.
Excellent. Riding microphone number 4, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Josiah Schweinberg, our engineer. What's up, man?
Hello.
Are you eating one of those Cadbury mini eggs? I just called you out.
How many have you had today?
Yes.
For the record, they are the best candy in existence.
Ugh, now my weakness.
Yep.
Pray for me.
My name is Tyler Andrews. I'll be the host. Guys, I have a fun question. What is the best candy? I mean, obviously, I think it's Cadbury mini eggs, but you're welcome to your own opinion, even if it's wrong.
I mean, I'm going to go Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, you're wrong.
No, I mean, I like the chocolates and stuff. I think I've had too much like good small company chocolate to like anything chocolate related that much.
Okay.
Like in terms of like mass produced. So I got to stick with gummies because it doesn't matter when they're made or they're just garbage anyway. But I love gummies. I do. And Sour Patch Kids, close with Swedish Fish.
Okay. All right. That's weird. Weird choice.
No,
But
it's just tremendous. Accurate choice.
I would have to agree.
Yes!
Sour Patch Kids.
What is
Especially the
this
reds.
nonsense?
I like the reds and I like the blues now too. I do like the blues.
So you
And
probably
then
like Ghost,
also-
the Ghost Sour Patch Swedish Fish versions.
You know how Starburst makes like the all one color packs? I
Yes.
wish they had all red Sour Patch.
One of my current favorites are the Nerds gummy clusters.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what it is about those.
Your knowledge of candy really is
They're
deeply
They're like
impressive.
the Nerds rope.
Yeah.
But they just cut them up.
Yep.
So, because the Nerds rope was a tough one.
Yeah. You
You
don't
know?
want to have to eat the
You need
entire
space.
thing.
You need too much space.
There
depending
are
on-
these like ultra marathon runners and stuff that I follow on Instagram.
They have nerd ropes.
They were talking about nerd clusters, like taking because some of these running nutritional
Running nerds.
They have like things like, oh, take this on your run.
Sure.
Like these whatever. They're like, just take nerds clusters. They're just the same thing. Just a bunch of sugar.
Yeah, because I tried those little packets. They were like
The glucose packets or whatever?
When I was running the half marathon, did a few years in a row, and they're disgusting.
Run a half marathon. Are you going to run a half
You gotta bring
marathon?
some.
No, I'm not back
Come
in that
on.
kind of shape. I'm getting better.
The two of you
but
guys can race and make
Tyler,
it happen.
you.
I'll tell you what, if I
you're
keep
ready. You're going to be ready.
if I keep eating these Cadbury eggs, I'm not going to be running anything. Dude.
You don't bring
Mini eggs.
Cadbury
Mini
eggs
eggs.
on your runs.
I'll just be throwing up Cadbury eggs.
Oh, gosh.
My son is just starting to train for the kids marathon. It's 1 mile. And I think one way I'll keep him motivated is to tell him that because for the run, he'll get some candy in his pocket to be able for energy. He will eat that up.
I
literally.
guarantee you his son could outpace me in the run.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kids are
100%
fast.
true.
Kids are fast. Kids can really move in short bursts, for sure.
All right.
Not
So
very
let's talk about the FDA issuing.
I don't have a favorite candy.
You already said yours.
Spotlight.
You
I just
agreed
wanted to
with
get in on
me.
the mix.
You
Can't even
agreed with
drink.
me that Cadbury mini eggs were the best candy.
They are good.
And now I've lost Dante.
It's from the chocolate.
Josiah, do you have a favorite candy? Do you want to say something now,
mini
sir?
Cadbury eggs.
He said that so passionately. I love it. So confidently.
No, I'm a chocolate. I like chocolate.
Just
Chocolate's
general.
Chocolate covered pretzels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a solid. When I was a
Good.
kid, that was
Chocolate covered pretzels and chocolate covered nuts of any kind. I do love. It's supposed to be funny.
It's getting late in the recording day.
That's messed up.
People are never going to believe we actually do tell serious medical information.
I want to see. We're putting Michael Depesh to work on this one.
If this is your first time watching this show, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
This is not a health podcast. Let's turn it into that. Guys, I heard from you guys that there was something going on with the FDA changing labeling on testosterone, which is something I keep up with all the time. But you guys were very excited about it. What is going on? What is the FDA doing? What's changing?
So in a broad overview, all testosterone containing medications, the labels or the package inserts contain boxed warnings, which is the most serious type of warning from the FDA regarding an increased risk of major cardiovascular events like heart attack and stroke. So
I didn't know that.
yes, and so
Okay.
that was in every package insert, kind of very clearly stated. And now the kind of the new development is that the FDA has recommended that this particular type of language be removed.
Oh,
The main reason behind this is the emergence or the really the finishing touches of a trial that was set out to further investigate these risks. So they have those results, or at least they have what they need to make a stronger opinion on the change. So that was a big part of this. And then also, there are some other minor changes, some language that they're keeping, including the limitations of use, which is basically just saying all of this applies to a very specific group. This is not talking about major cardiovascular events or talking about indications for this group or that group. It's just true hypogonadism in, as with aging, basically.
so you're saying that the ASCVD risk, as described by the original box warning, is overstated a safe word?
So it's technically not ASCVD risk.
Okay.
It's just major adverse cardio events,
Okay.
basically.
But
So-
it was still
Yes.
not as bad as it was made to seem.
That, yes. And that the trial that they used to, again, make this determination, it's called the TRAVERSE trial. So testosterone replacement therapy for assessment of long-term vascular events and efficacy response in hypogonadal men. So the TRAVERSE trial, those are unreal.
Yeah, they work really hard on those names.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
They did a great job. On
They
that.
do. And so what they ultimately found was that testosterone replacement therapy was non-inferior to placebo regarding major adverse events. So more simply put, it just didn't show any increased risk as compared to placebo.
Okay.
And so,
Oh, wow. Then it's not just overstated. It's
yeah.
wrong, according to that study.
Yeah. And I think there's kind of a lot to unpack here, but while we're on that part of the subject, that was sort of the issue, was all this reporting came in the early 2010s that sort of, I would say, more or less scared the FDA into doing something. There's this influx of reports. And so they felt that the best thing to do at that time was just like, hey, we maybe don't know the kind of the exact signal that's occurring here, but we need to be careful. This seems like it might be related to the testosterone medications that are being used.
Sure.
They slap this warning on the products. Fast forward 15, 16 years, and we have a little bit better handling on this specific population, and that, the risk of these events was possibly a little overstated.
Yeah, it seems like I don't know what you saw in looking at maybe some of those initial reports. There was a lot of correlative data.
Yeah.
These were not, placebo-controlled double-blind studies moving forward. They were looking backward. A lot of them were also very small. And so along with this big TRAVERSE study, it was kind of done hand in hand. I don't know maybe what the impetus was, but there is a testosterone oral pill that they were looking to get approved. And so again, I don't know what the exact interlink is, but along with the approval process for that medication, this large study was done right around the same time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Fascinating. So theoretically, the oral medication is going to get approved
Yes.
because they found that it wasn't.
Yeah, of course, the
causing
drug
massive
company is
risk.
taking some responsibility that they played a role in this, in the Traverse study.
Yeah,
And there may be some truth, but again, where it started first, and
Right.
But yeah, it was just interesting that kind of was the timing. So it was a good time to relook at everything, given that approval for a major, medication and a novel delivery mechanism of it, because you always, are typically dealing with injections and creams, whereas this will be an oral that's absorbed via the lymphatic system that you can take instead of those other two.
This is exciting in the sense that I don't think there are a ton of time. We hear about the FDA adding warnings pretty regularly. We don't often hear about them removing warnings. Can you think of any other times that this has happened?
Man, I'm sure that there are. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I probably couldn't.
But in general, you're
Yeah.
right. You're typically
Yeah.
looking at medications on the market have a warning added to them. It's that occurs much more
Yeah.
often than the subtraction. But yeah, I can't say either that, this is the first, or I can only remember another one. But it's, yes, your general point is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And ultimately they're just cleaning up what was on there. I mean, it was such a broad sort of warning
Yeah.
that at least now with this trial that they can, they're not just removing everything. And so I think that's a good segue into what's actually going to be on these labels. So they're planning to put the results of the Traverse trial on there
Okay.
so that a, practitioner, whoever this product is dispensed to, I guess if they're interested, they can see directly where this information is coming from. This is the trial. This is the amount of people. This is what was shown so that we,
Right.
we now feel this way. And then they also added, in addition to, cleaning up that language, they're also adding a warning about increased risk of high blood pressure. So
interesting.
there's no specific warning about that currently. So there was another, I believe it was a study or subset of studies that looked at ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. So blood pressure monitoring from home, just out in the world. And they did see a modest increase amongst those individuals taking testosterone medications. So it allows for a little more of a targeted conversation, I think, when assessing risks and benefit of a treatment like this. So instead of just like, hey, it's this big nebulous, it could be this, it could be a stroke, it could be a heart attack, it could be.
Do you have a heart? Then you're at risk.
Right. Now it's a little more like, hey, we see that some people, maybe it's depending on the dose, maybe it's depending on the form, but if you have hypertension, if you're predisposed to hypertension, or whatever, you're just trying to weigh the different options here, it's at least now something that's more specifically marked.
That's fantastic. That's really, I love when things get more clear, less murky in these sorts of situations. So tell me more about this study that was done. This seems like this was a pretty big deal if they're using a single study to radically alter the labeling of a pharmaceutical that's used by presumably millions of men.
So it was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, so a very high-quality study. 5,246 men aged 45 to 80 who had a pre-existing or high risk of cardiovascular disease.
Oh, wow.
But who had low testosterone or hypogonadism and had two. So when you get the testosterone level checked, you always make sure you have it twice. So they were checked at least twice, and they had documented below 300 twice with a symptom.
So they're talking about, it's a large group, and you're talking about men who already have high risk of cardiovascular problems.
Pre-existing or a high risk.
Wow. So they're kind of stacking the deck in order to make it as negative of a situation as possible.
Yes. Yeah. And they're really just trying to make sure that they're evaluating the population that would be most at risk for something like this to be an intervention to change,
that makes
to
sense.
cause an issue. Yeah.
Okay. And they found functionally no difference between placebo and the control in the trial groups.
Yes. So the primary endpoint was the major adverse cardiovascular events. Again, they found that the TRT was non-inferior to placebo in that event. The rate of the events was similar, 7% in the treatment group, 7.3% in the placebo group.
Wow.
So that was the
Rate of events being the percentage of people in the groups, in each group, who had a negative cardiovascular situation.
Yeah. And then they did point out some other adverse events that were, statistically significant, but not maybe, clinically meaningful enough to deserve a place in the labeling, more or less. AFib, 3.5% versus 2.4%. Acute kidney injury, 2.3% versus 1.5%. There was a little bit higher risk of pulmonary embolisms and also a slightly higher, so 3.5% versus 2.4%, 2.46% risk of clinical fractures. So that's just more or less worth mentioning. Again, not in relation to the primary endpoints, but worth noting some of the findings after the fact. There was a high discontinuation rate in the trial, which I did note, which was noted, and most of the individuals reached testosterone levels that would be considered modest or on the lower end of normal.
Okay.
So and then I don't know if we mentioned they used testosterone gel as the treatment route of delivery in this case. So it was interesting. There are certainly, glad Joey mentioned, there's definitely some other things to unpack from it. But again, this mainly set out to try and determine, is there really a link here to the major events that were seemingly occurring because of it?
Yeah, like Dante said, I think it's key to remember, because when you look at things related to testosterone and downsides with it, I always kind of center it back to, well, what were they dosing to? And so that's critical. This is set up to dose to normal levels. And then it just, again, was looking at, all right, so you have low T, you do have a high risk or pre-existing cardiovascular disease. If we don't treat it at all, so that was interesting too. It wasn't a comparison of mild and moderate treatment or different levels. It was just, we're going to treat it to normal or we're not going to treat it at all. Is there any cardiovascular benefit to not treating it at all in this population? And there was not.
Yeah.
And there was not.
That's great news, especially for this group of men that need this sort of treatment. But it's just great news in general that a naturally occurring hormone isn't going to cause all of us to die earlier.
Yeah. And I think it's too, because low testosterone is one of those conditions that's a quality of life thing.
Yeah.
It's not, well, if I'm not treating this condition, this is purely quality of life. And so I understand that it does make sense that the bar would be higher or lower, depending on how you want to say it, but that there would be, if there is any risk, because we're dealing with men that are aging, there's the highest risk. If there is any increased risk at all for a cardiovascular event, is the quality of life benefits worth it? And, so I think that is, very critical to me to understand. Again, as long as you're doing the right dosing, you're dosing to the right values, you're not hyperdosing, you're not dosing whenever you don't have low T. So again, this is again not meant to be a sign off of, I'm in my 30s and I've been feeling a little tired and this doctor writes this. That's not what this is. That's what we make very clear, that this is this certain age dosed to the proper levels, normal testosterone levels, and done so only whenever you're diagnosed with low T.
We're not talking about supranatural testosterone levels.
But that ultimately, though, is what muddies a lot of the conversation around it. When people start to get, if you kind of lump yourself in, well, I hear when people do this testosterone, or they're just doing it because they want to be better in the gym or whatever the case may be, or look better. And again, those things do matter.
Yep.
Again, that's back to the quality of life. I think that's a whole discussion in and of itself. But in terms of this study, it's, we're sticking to the basics of who would be prescribed and who the label was on there for. But it does, again, back to showing you why the label was on there in the first place in what seemed like a pretty aggressive fashion.
Yeah.
Because it's comparing to a quality of life. It is. And the other interesting thing, back to the medication that was, the oral testosterone and kind of its role in this. The one thing I did forget to mention that I think is important is that when we talked about removing labels, removing warnings, they don't happen a lot, because by the time the ball gets rolling, it's not a brand anymore.
Right.
So there has to be typically some money behind it. So when you're looking at a negative outcome, everybody cares about health, right? So the negatives are going to put on there, there's studies, and that's great. But when it's something like this, who's going to pay for the study, for the Traverse study, to remove a warning label on a quality of life issue if it's not the brand companies? So I know sometimes we knock the drug companies for things like that, but the role that the oral testosterone played in the sense of let's relook at this because somebody really cares about it and somebody wants this off their label, is this label valid?
That is in and of itself a fascinating conversation about the money that
and a dynamic
is used to pay for all these studies has to be recouped somewhere. And if it can't be recouped, then why are we going to pay for it? Therefore, there's a whole lot of research that just isn't going to get done because it's not going to financially benefit anybody.
Exactly. And again, this drug company was motivated by A, we want to get our product approved. Yeah. And then B, we'd rather not have that label on there. Yeah. Which if it shouldn't be on there, get it off. I mean,
Or they just made it a little more clear. It can increase blood pressure. Doesn't seem like it's giving everybody heart attacks and strokes,
Altogether fantastic news. And when the oral medication comes out, I'm sure we'll be talking about that as well. Because it's a big deal too. So
it is. Yeah, because the only available routes now are inconvenient. Yeah. It's a topical or injection. So it will be interesting to see with the combination of an oral being approved, and who knows if insurances will approve it, but with it being out there, and then really this conversation restarting. Again, this is from the drug company. I just thought they had some interesting things in there, but looking at, we probably need to shift the conversation from will testosterone cause cardiovascular issues to what's the risk of not treating testosterone deficiency, low testosterone, not just quality of life, but for cardiovascular purposes as well.
Yeah. And seems to me that's a legitimate question. Having low testosterone has so many downstream effects. It seems like that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And along those lines, in 2015, there was a study done by the VA of 83,000 male veterans with documented low testosterone. This was a little different. They grouped them into 3 levels. So they did TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, with normalization of levels. So basically done right, so to say. Without normalization. So they were getting TRT, but their levels weren't going up enough. I don't know how they decided to do that, but it does make some sense in terms of, is it literally just the exogenous exposure to this, or is it potential issues coming from just purely where your level ends up? And then group 3, no TRT. So again, these are all people with low T. So what they found was, again, out of these 83,000 observational, they found with extended follow-up normalization of testosterone levels after, so group 1 was associated with a significant reduction in all-cause mortality, MI, and stroke.
That's fantastic. Okay. So, and you're again, normal levels, subnormal, and no treatment at all.
Yes. So they also found that risk of MI, stroke, as well as all-cause mortality were significantly lower in group 1 versus group 2. So again, group 1 was treated TRT to normalization, and group 2 was treated with TRT, but not to normalization. So again, when you look at the 3 groups, and there was no difference, this is the key, there was no difference in MI or stroke risk between group 2 and 3. So between 1 and 2, so ultimately the point is, it seems like it's all about the level. It doesn't matter how you're getting there. So group 1, normal levels, lower risk of MI, stroke, and all-cause mortality, versus group 2 when you're not getting to the right level. In group 2 and 3, there was no difference. So essentially the way the body's functioning with group 2 and 3 is the same. Testosterone's low. Group 1 is the only one where it's normal.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it seems like the conversation is going from, hey, testosterone could possibly increase your risk of all these things, to, hey, not having enough testosterone does increase your risk of MI, myocardial infarction, is that what that is? And stroke.
at the very least, this study is so big, done by the VA with 83,000 men, and the stratification of having the group that was taking TRT having no difference between a group that was just totally untreated.
Yeah. You're saying the subclinical
Yes.
treatment level.
Yes, the subclinical treatment level. So having that group that was doing TRT, but not to normalization levels, to have no difference, positive or negative, versus the group that was not receiving any at all, I think is critical.
Right.
And really helps to understand what's going on. That again, it's all about the level.
Right.
And I think at the very least, because this was observational. Okay. This was not, randomized controlled trial. So just like when we're looking at the old studies that were more observational, that got the warning, that now the randomized controlled quality study moving forward now has got the movement. It's the more quality study. That's what's getting it off. I think this, at the very least, given its size and the results, all kind of adding up to say we need to evaluate now some potential positive effects, but do it moving forward versus looking back, so we can truly control for everything and account for everything.
This is really fantastic, and once again seems to reiterate the unbelievable power hormones have on our body that has not been understood for so long, and is only now starting to get that onion peeled back of going, hey, no, it's actually a big deal.
Yep.
You should really have your levels checked. You should know what that is. Well, that is it for us today. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this, or you know somebody who could learn from it, please share the episode with them. That is the best way for this to grow. If you want to see the show notes, those are always available down below. We'll have links to the articles related to all of this. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them. Email us, questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's AskJoedimatteo.com. Email us there. We will try to answer it on the show. And anything else? Oh, go to the website, askjoedimatteo.com. You can find this show. You can find the past episodes of this show. You can contact us there. You can find the products that we sell that are all fantastic, all there on our website, askjoedimatteo.com. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Josiah. The sun has come out. This is delightful.
The sun has come out, and it turned the camera off, so you can't see me. It got so bright. It was your plan all along, wasn't it?
It was. You're just gonna not exist. There is no Josiah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
No.